The CEO told a black farmer's son to try to fix a car. He had no idea who the boy's father was. Before we start the story, write in the comments from which part of the world you're watching today. Hey, country boy, how about you try fixing our $15 million car? Maybe beginner's luck will work. CEO Richard Morrison's voice echoed through the Techflow Industries warehouse like the crack of a whip, eliciting malicious laughter from the 50 employees gathered around the stalled production line. Marcus Thompson, just 19 years old, looked up calmly from his cell phone, where he was typing a message to his priest. His hands, calloused from years of working on the family farm, remained still as he sent the message. Dad, it's time. You can start. For 3 weeks straight, the company's most advanced machine had been broken, costing $540,000 a day in losses. 7 engineers with PhDs from elite universities, 2 specialists flown in from Germany, and even a consultant from NASA had all fallen to the silent machine. Marcus was there simply to pick up some paperwork that his mother, Helena Thompson, a legal secretary for 15 years, had forgotten in her rush. It was her last day on the job before starting her engineering degree at Stanford, an accomplishment she had kept secret for reasons known only to her family. Come on, people. Make way for our rural equipment expert, Morrison continued, gesturing dramatically as dozens of cell phones rose to record the moment. His blue eyes glittered with the studied cruelty of a man who had built an empire by trampling men like Marcus. Maybe he'd employ some cattle management technique our Harvard PhDs didn't know about. The laughter grew louder, echoing through the warehouse like the growls of hyenas surrounding wounded prey. Marcus looked at each face around him, some laughing with genuine cruelty, others awkward but cowardly silent. He made a mental note of each one. Dr. Sarah Chun, the chief engineer and one of the few decent people in the company, whispered to a colleague, "This is a blatant racial humiliation. Someone has to stop this." But her voice was lost in the chorus of laughter that Morrison had orchestrated with the skill of a seasoned sociopath. Look at him, everyone. Morrison approached Marcus like a predator, his breath reeking of $3,000 Irish whiskey as he invaded the young man's personal space. Bet you never saw a car that wasn't horse-powered, did you, little farmer? Marcus stood still, but anyone paying attention would have seen something unsettling in his eyes. There was no shame or fear or anger there, just an almost dangerous calm, like the calm before a devastating hurricane. He'd witnessed this same arrogance years before, when his father had been publicly humiliated by Morrison himself during a town hall. That day, Marcus had vowed that the Thompson family would one day exact revenge. And unlike most people, the Thompsons had the resources to turn vows into reality. Well then, little farmer. Morrison knocked on the side of the car with the same casualness one might use to knock on an old door. Will you accept our scientific challenge, or would you rather go back to planting sweet potatoes? The silence that followed was thick as fog. Even the nervous laughter ceased. Everyone waited for the final humiliation, the moment when the young black man would bow his head and run away, confirming every prejudice Morrison loved to feed. Marcus slowly put his cell phone away, his fingers sliding across the screen in a final motion that might have been nervousness, but was actually sending GPS coordinates and a code that only 3 people in the world knew. Then, for the first time since he'd entered the warehouse, he smiled. It wasn't the nervous smile of a man feeling intimidated, or the forced smile of a man trying to hide humiliation. It was the cool smile of a man about to rewrite the fate of everyone here. Of course, Mr. Morrison, it would be an honor to try to help. Those 8 words, spoken with the impeccable politeness his mother had taught him, were a death sentence to anyone who knew how to listen. Morrison, drunk on his own arrogance, interpreted politeness as humility. None of the 50 men could have imagined that Marcus Thompson was more than just a farmer's son. He was the son of the man who had designed this very machine 3 years earlier, in absolute secrecy, under a confidentiality agreement that Morrison had violated so flagrantly that he had just signed his own professional death warrant. If you're curious about how a moment of racial humiliation turned into the biggest mistake of a billionaire CEO's life, and want to know what secret a seemingly simple family has been keeping for years, be sure to subscribe to follow this story of justice that goes further than anyone could have imagined. Marcus approached the car with the same ease a man might approach an old friend, his fingers gliding over the metal surface with a frightening familiarity, completely ignoring the laughter that was still echoing in the background. "Anyone got a Phillips screwdriver and a flashlight?" he asked, his voice cutting through the noise like a sharp blade. Morrison laughed harder. "Listen, the little farmer wants tools. How about a hammer too, buddy? Maybe it'll work better than all our German technology." Dr. Sarah Chun, watching from the sidelines, frowned. There was something about Marcus's demeanor that was completely at odds with the stereotype Morrison was trying to sell. She approached cautiously, handing him the tools he had requested. "Thank you, Doctor," Marcus whispered, meeting her gaze for a moment. "You designed the cooling system for this line, right?" "Brilliant work." Sarah froze. This particular piece of information was not publicly available anywhere. How could a young farmer know technical details that only she and 3 other people knew? As Marcus leaned over to examine the bottom panel, his cell phone vibrated quietly. A simple message appeared on the screen. "Coordinates received. Phoenix Protocol initiating." D.T. Morrison, drunk on his own performance, continued his brutal show. "Look at this, everyone. Now he's going to fix our $15 million machine with a screwdriver. Is anyone recording this? This is going to go viral on social media." The staff laughed nervously, but some began to feel uncomfortable with the gratuitous cruelty. Marcus, however, worked with surgical precision, removing specific panels, as if he had a mental map of the internal structure. "Interesting," he muttered under his breath, but loud enough for Sarah to hear. "The pressure sensor is set to European parameters, but the American voltage is causing interference in the primary circuit." Classic conversion error. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. Marcus had just identified the same problem her team had suspected for 3 weeks, but had yet to confirm. Morrison, noticing that some people had stopped laughing to pay attention to Marcus's work, raised his voice even more. "You know what, little farmer? When you fail here in front of everyone, I'll make sure your mother loses her job too. A family of losers doesn't deserve to work for a serious company." The threat to Helena made Marcus pause for a second. His hands tightened imperceptibly, but when he raised his face, his smile remained intact. Now with a hint of something that made Morrison involuntarily retreat. "Mr. Morrison," Marcus said, his voice impeccably polite, "are you sure you want to put the company's reputation on the line at this point?" "I will." Morrison laughed, but there was a forced note in his voice. "You're literally a nobody, kid. You have nothing to threaten me with." At that moment, Marcus's cell phone vibrated again. This time, the message contained only GPS coordinates and a time. ETA in 20 minutes. Prepare the site. DT. Marcus adjusted the 2 internal cables with precise movements, then plugged in a small device he pulled from his pocket, something that looked like a simple adapter, but which Sarah immediately recognized as a custom voltage regulator. "Where did you get that?" she whispered in disbelief. "My father always taught me to be prepared," Marcus replied simply. The machine made a soft hum, then a metallic click. The status lights began to flash in a pattern that had not happened in 3 weeks. A murmur of surprise passed through the group. Morrison pushed past people to get closer. "This is impossible. You're cheating." "Cheating?" Marcus stood up, calmly wiping his hands. "Mr. Morrison, the problem was simply a voltage incompatibility between the European and American components. Anyone with a basic understanding of industrial electronics would know that." The silence that followed was deafening. The machine wasn't just working, it was operating at a level of efficiency that exceeded all original specifications. Sarah looked at Marcus with new eyes, finally realizing what she should have noticed all along. Confidence, technical knowledge, familiarity with equipment that only senior engineers should know. "Who are you, really?" she whispered. Marcus checked the time on his cell phone. 15 minutes. Enough time for the second part of the plan. "Dr. Chun," he said, ignoring her question, "do you believe that people deserve to be judged by their character and competence, not by their appearance or background?" Sarah nodded instinctively. "Then brace yourself. In a few minutes, Mr. Morrison will discover that underestimating people can be the most expensive mistake of your life." As the machine ran smoothly and Morrison tried to come up with an explanation that would salvage his wounded dignity, no one noticed the black car that had just pulled up to the company gates or the elegant man striding purposefully toward the warehouse. The man whose name was about to turn this racial humiliation into a nightmare, Morrison would never forget. The sound of solid footsteps on concrete made several heads turn toward the warehouse entrance. A smart man in his 50s walked with natural authority, his suit discreet but impeccable, carrying a leather briefcase that looked as if it contained important documents. "Sorry to disturb you," he said, his voice cutting through the chatter. "My name is Daniel Thompson, and I believe you were testing my son." The silence was immediate and absolute. Morrison frowned, clearly confused, while Marcus rose slowly, a smile that finally revealed his true intentions. "Dad," Marcus said simply, "Mr. Morrison challenged me to fix the machine you designed." "Daniel Thompson," the name shot through Sarah Chen's mind like a gunshot. She knew the name from the most exclusive circles of industrial engineering. The reclusive genius who had revolutionized factory automation before mysteriously disappearing from the corporate world 3 years ago. Morrison, still trying to process the information, stammered, I don't understand. You said you were a farmer." "I am a farmer," Daniel replied, opening his briefcase and pulling out a stack of paperwork. "But I am also the engineer who designed this particular machine for Techflow Industries under an exclusive confidentiality agreement. An agreement that, according to my records, was systematically violated." Dr. Sarah Chen approached, her eyes widening as she recognized the signatures on the paperwork. "Oh my God, you're the DT from the technical specifications. I always wondered who the genius was behind this design." Daniel smiled at her with genuine warmth. "Dr. Chen, I've read your papers on energy efficiency. Exceptional work. It's a shame my designs were attributed to others." Morrison felt the ground shift from under his feet. "Wait, that's impossible. Our engineers designed this machine in-house. We have full documentation. Are you sure?" Daniel pulled a tablet out of his briefcase, displaying a video recording with a date. "This is the meeting on March 14th, 2021, where you secretly hired me to design this project, ensuring that my name would never appear publicly. Here you are, signing a confidentiality agreement and agreeing to pay $800,000 for exclusive rights." The footage showed Morrison, clearly recognizable, shaking hands with Daniel in his plush office, discussing technical specifications that only the true creator would know. That was 3 years ago," Morrison stammered, his face turning red. "No one is supposed to know about these details." Marcus stepped forward, pulling out his own cell phone. "In fact, Mr. Morrison, 50 people just witnessed you racially insulting me and threatening to fire my mother, all recorded and posted live on the company's social media." The color drained from Morrison's face. "You couldn't have done that." "Oh, but I did." Marcus showed him his phone screen, where thousands of views had already piled up on the live video. The comments were devastating. "A racist CEO is degrading a young black man. This man is disgusting. Boycott Techflow. This is unacceptable in 2024. Daniel continued, relentless. "But the best part, Mr. Morrison, is that you just committed a breach of contract by publicly releasing my work. We recorded everything. You are falsely attributing my design to your engineers, violating a confidentiality agreement that required me to remain anonymous." Sarah Chun, finally realizing the enormity of the situation, shook her head in disbelief. "Richard, you lied to all of us. We took credit for work we didn't do. What's more," Marcus added with deadly calm, "you violated federal civil rights laws by publicly discriminating against me based on my race. We have 50 witnesses and high-definition video." Morrison looked around desperately for support, but found only shocked and disappointed faces. Some employees were already whispering among themselves. Others were typing furiously on their phones. "You don't understand," Morrison tried to explain. It was a joke, a personality test." "A joke?" Daniel's voice turned icy. "Calling my son a small farmer, suggesting he was using pen and pan methods, threatening his mother's job. Is this a joke to you?" Morrison's cell phone started ringing off the hook. The board had probably already seen the viral video. He answered with shaking hands. "Hello? Yes, I can explain." "No, that's not how it happened." As Morrison tried to maintain control over the phone, Daniel turned to the stunned audience. "My son fixed this car in 15 minutes because I taught him every circuit, every component. He knows my job better than anyone here. including the guy who stole my credit. Marcus watched as Morrison hung up. His face is as white as a sheet. Let me guess, Marcus said with subtle sarcasm. The board wants an explanation for the hashtags Jarkusharn racist CEO and Nadashar Techflow racism, which are already going viral. Morrison made one last desperate attempt. Look, we can resolve this peacefully. How about a raise for your mother? A raise? Daniel Thompson smiled, but there was no warmth in the smile. Mr. Morrison, the only thing we want right now is justice. And judging by the comments on social media, 50,000 people agree with us. As Morrison watched his career and reputation crumble in real time, one question remained. Was it possible that his arrogance and racism had not only ruined his own life, but had also exposed a truth about a company that would forever change the way the world looked at Techflow Industries? 48 hours after the video went viral, Richard Morrison cleared out his executive desk for the last time. The board voted unanimously to fire him immediately, and the hashtags Rock Racist CEO and Nashat and Boycott Techflow remained among the most discussed topics on social media, with more than 20 million views. Your personal belongings will be mailed to you, the lawyer said, avoiding eye contact. Your company car has been repossessed. Your access to the systems has been revoked, and the legal department requests that you make no public statement regarding the incident. Morrison tried to maintain his dignity, but his hands shook as he placed a family photo in a cheap cardboard box. In less than 2 days, he had lost not only his job of 15 years, but also dozens of corporate contracts that depended solely on his personal reputation. His company stock, once valued at $8 million, was now worth less than toilet paper. Across town, Marcus received a call that would change his life forever. Mr. Thompson, this is Linda Roberts, the new interim CEO of Techflow. We'd like to offer you a senior engineering position with a starting salary of $120,000 per year, plus a full scholarship to finish your education at Stanford. Daniel, sitting next to his son in the simple kitchen of the farm they no longer had to sell, smiled with fatherly pride. What about breach of contract and emotional distress? He asked over the phone, his voice carrying the calm of someone who had finally seen justice done. We're looking at $2.5 million in compensation for stolen credit, plus royalties on all derivative products, Linda replied. We'd also like to establish a corporate diversity program in the Thompson family's name with an annual budget of $500,000. Dr. Sarah Chun, promoted to Director of Engineering after Morrison's fall, visited the farm in person over the weekend, bearing an offer that was far more than a simple job offer. Marcus, I wanted to apologize in person for not protecting you back then, but I also wanted to offer you something revolutionary. She held out a folder containing official documents printed on company letterhead. Techflow wants to create the Daniel Thompson Institute for Innovation, offering full scholarships, mentorships, and internships to talented young people from rural and underserved communities. We need ambassadors who understand both technical excellence and the importance of social justice. Elena Thompson, Marcus's mother, could finally walk the company's halls with her head held high, telling her colleagues about her son's accomplishments at Stanford and the true genius of her family. Information she had kept secret for years to protect them from damaging expectations and systemic bias. Meanwhile, Morrison was learning firsthand how the corporate world treats those who fall from their pedestals. Not only were his former executive friends avoiding his calls, they were actively spreading the word that his consulting firm was radioactive to any brand that valued diversity and inclusion. 6 months later, Marcus was walking across the Stanford campus as a full-ride student, while his father was simultaneously consulting for 3 of the country's largest tech companies, each contract worth more than Morrison had earned in his entire career. The documentary Racial Humiliation, The Price of Corporate Hubris, had racked up 15 million views and inspired dozens of young Black and Latino men to pursue careers in engineering and tech. The transformation at Techflow was even more dramatic. The Thompson's diversity program not only hired 50 new engineers from diverse backgrounds, it also developed 3 groundbreaking patents that increased the company's value by 40%. Wall Street has officially acknowledged that the Thompson era has made Techflow more innovative and profitable than it ever was under its previous discriminatory management. Morrison, meanwhile, moved to a small rural town after his professional reputation was completely destroyed. No major company wanted to hire him, and even basic consulting jobs were turned down when employers discovered his identity with a simple Google search. The arrogance that once seemed like his greatest asset literally became his professional death sentence. During an interview on the Social Justice in Action podcast, Marcus reflected on his experience with a maturity well beyond his 20s. True revenge isn't about destroying those who hurt you. It's about creating something so meaningful and transformative that it makes their limited opinion of you irrelevant. Daniel added, his words carried the weight of years of experience. I taught my son that true talent has no skin color, class, or geographic origin. But I also learned that sometimes the world needs to see that truth very clearly, publicly, and in a way that's impossible to ignore. The Thompson family story has proven conclusively that underestimating people based on superficial traits or archaic prejudices can be the most costly and irreparable mistake anyone can make in life. Marcus didn't just fix a broken car. He repaired an entire system of prejudice and limitations that wasted incredible potential every day. The best revenge was never the petty destruction of an enemy, but the flawless creation of a legacy that they could never have imagined or achieved. Marcus turned a brutal moment of racial humiliation into the catalyst for a silent revolution that opened golden doors for thousands of young people who, like him, had hidden talents just waiting for the right opportunity to shine and transform the world. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance, background, or social status? How did you react when someone tried to diminish your potential? Leave your story of overcoming adversity in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true exceptionality always finds a way, no matter the cruel obstacles created by prejudice and human ignorance.